Welcome back, everyone. POW Ponder on Weather here. Hope everyone out there is enjoying your weekend. We got big changes ahead with the strong Canadian cold front and big snows moving in. Let's in fact start off with some of those snow amounts for the season to date so far. And you can definitely see many areas out west have seen numerous record amounts of snows across, especially the mountain regions of the Sierra Nevadas. They're approaching almost all-time record snow amounts. Some of these areas into Big Bear regions, and they've been out with power for the last 7 days. They just can't let up with those snows. But some awesome, pretty good snows that's blanketed across our northern states, and we're going to be adding to these snowfall totals going forward. But this is basically where we stand for the season to date, as we're still have a couple more weeks of winter left, and there's going to be plenty of snow on the table as well, as a lot more colder air is definitely going to be moving in. So let's take a look at the overall precipitation over the last 90 days, and that's actually been impressive as well, especially out west where they've desperately been needing the rain, and that has slowly put a major dent in the drought out there, especially in California. So this is definitely a good sign to see. Even across the desert Southwest, they picked up some healthy dosings over the last 90 days, and much of the actual central and eastern two-thirds as well has seen more or less above average rainfall. Where they've been below average is more or less into the central US, where they've been kind of missing out in these systems as they really start to amplify as they tap into some of this Gulf moisture. But going forward, we can be looking at over the next 48 hours of more of a zonal flow. So here's the setup going forward between now and say Tuesday, with the boundary setting up shop across our northern states and into the Pacific Northwest, up across the upper central US and to the upper Midwest. That's where the snow is going to be flying, and the colder air. And further to the south, it's more of a Pacific flow, at least for the next 2 days, as some of these areas will actually be knocking on the door of some record high temperatures with well above average temperatures. But that's going to be changing by midweek, as that strong Canadian cold front will be shifting southbound. But between now and then, there's the snows flying over the next 48 hours. Like I mentioned, the mountain regions in California just won't, take a break with all the snows going to be impacting those regions. Even across the upper, the upper Midwest, some of these areas could pick up easily 4 to 6 inches of snowfall just over the next 48 hours through the Dakotas, through Minnesota again, into Wisconsin, northern portions of Michigan, as well as an area that could actually surprise and pick up some pretty good dosing of snow across the southern areas of upstate New York. And here's the precipitation over the next 48 hours as well. Like it pretty much looks like all in the form of snow. So because further south into that Pacific flow, at least for the next 2 days, you're going to be experiencing some pretty nice weather, but it's going to be on the warm side for sure. But that will change as things going forward, because it's all about this strong Canadian cold front will be slowly shifting south. And as it does, it's definitely going to be knocking those temperatures. A lot of global guidance doesn't have this pushing that far south, but the latest NAM does have it pushing into a good part of Texas, and typically they see shallow colder air better than some of these global models. But yes, to the north, we're still going to be seeing those snow flies and across the portions of the Pacific Northwest and heading into the portions of the upper central US with more snows for the Dakotas. But the rain should start to squeeze out of the atmosphere back down further south into Oklahoma and parts of North Texas as we get at least into Tuesday night time frame. It's all about this slow progression cold front. But we'll be adding to these rainfall totals by midweek. So if you are into the market for a weather station, I highly recommend the Tempest Weatherflow weather station. This is actually the one I have. The cool thing about this one is it's all solar. It has a really convenient app. My whole family actually has the app on their phone. But the cool thing is this actually has another data point for the National Weather Service and all the models out there. So this data point, even in your backyard, gets actually fed back into the models and definitely helps with the accuracy going forward. So as many of you out there that may have a Weatherflow weather station is definitely helping out into the accuracy of the models, because all this gets transmitted, this information gets transmitted back into that feed and helps out the accuracy going forward. So if you'd like to purchase one of these, we do have a code you get a 10% discount and free shipping at checkout. You can click on my link below and you can definitely order one for yourself. So let's take a look at some of those temperatures heading into Wednesday. Like I mentioned, it's a shallow, cold Arctic air mass, at least for March standards. And here's the latest NAM showing the difference of those colder temperatures. And these are about 3 o'clock in the afternoon, swinging into the low 40s in a good part of Oklahoma. Much of the Texas panhandle shifting into the 30s, even in portions of North Texas, trying to get out of the 40s as it hangs on to those colder temperatures, as well above average temperatures just a little bit further south into the central Texas and much of South Texas, and getting into course portions of the southeast. Now the difference is, in the latest European doesn't have it shifting that far south, so this is a huge difference on how these global models see these shallow cold air masses. The European doesn't really pick up on these shallow cold air masses as much as the short range NAM guidance. So I'm definitely leaning towards more of the NAM on this particular setup. And that makes a huge difference in temperatures. Obviously in the afternoon, we're looking at 76, say in Dallas, and the NAM's in the 40s. So that is a big difference, because yes, you're going to have a lot of discrepancies, and probably like your weather apps out there, especially by midweek, is that slow cold air will be slowly shifting southbound. But there's to the north, that's where the Arctic air is, and it's going to be plenty cold because these are high temperatures on your day on Wednesday. So, but going forward, there's that cold front. So it's all draped across that boundary, and we could be looking at some heavy rains that is going to be draping across portions of North Texas into portions of West Texas as well, but especially north along the Red River into Oklahoma, the Oklahoma City area, back into eastern portions of Oklahoma. They do have a slight risk for excessive rainfall heading up into Arkansas. These are areas could easily pick up maybe 1 to 3 inches just on the day on your Wednesday time frame, and in the green shaded areas, you could be picking up possibly 1 to 2 inches of rainfall, and this actually extends into the Memphis, Tennessee area. But going into Thursday, yes, again, that shallow cold Arctic air mass will slowly be shifting southbound and draped across that boundary. That's where we have to pick up some flooding concerns. So I wouldn't be surprised by Thursday we probably have some flash flood watches in place, especially for eastern Oklahoma, heading into northern portions of Arkansas here into western Tennessee, where they've been getting hit hard with a lot of heavy rain as of yet, even last week. And they'll be looking at adding to these totals, extending into the Kentucky region and southern portions of Illinois, headed into your Thursday time frame. But there's the setup just over the next 5 days with the precipitation front. Along the West Coast, again, you get crushed with more heavy rain, of course, portions, at least the coastal regions of Washington and Oregon, but especially in Northern California. Notice much of Southern California, much of the desert Southwest will be kind of high and dry, and really almost a good part of West Texas. Much of the Intermountain West will be seeing snows. Most of that will be in the form of snow, but really all the action is, as far as the heavier rains, is again right there in the northern portions of North Texas, getting into Oklahoma, through the Arklatex, through portions of Missouri here, clipping eastern portions of Kansas, heading into northern portions of Mississippi, Alabama, getting into western Tennessee and western Kentucky. This is the area that could have some flash flooding concerns, especially into your Wednesday, Thursday time frame. Much of the area up here into the upper Midwest, that will be in the form of snow, and you're fairly dry for the next 5 days out here. Portions of the southeast and really much of the northeast will be dry for the next at least 5 days, but things change by the weekend. Because here's the setup by Friday. So the northern branch gets these little short waves, and with these short waves, you have a little bit of a kink in the hose, and that's going to be adding to these snow totals. So it's a compounding effect. You have the snows right now. You'll have another system come in on Friday, and then yet you'll have another system trailing behind that one as you have more of a southwest flow, and it's probably going to be setting up more of a chillier rain, at least for March standards, back into our southern plains region heading into the day on your Friday. So here's the setup on the surface map. Again, the West Coast gets crushed again with heavy rain along the coast. Snow flies across the Intermountain West. The desert Southwest remains dry. There's the setup with that little kink in the hose, that little dip in the jet stream to the northern branch of there. That's where the snow is going to be flying. So these are adding to these totals on top of what you're going to be seeing over the next 48 hours across portions of the Dakotas, back into Minnesota, back into Wisconsin again, into Iowa. These areas have been hit hard with very heavy snow, for this winter. Further to the south, we'll be adding to these rainfall totals into a good part of Texas as that colder air will continue to pull a little bit further south by then, draped across the southeast as well, with more of a kind of a chillier rain by then, setting up, of course, portions of the southeast. But headed into the weekend, that's where a bigger snowstorm could be looking to unfold, especially across portions of the Northeast. We'll be adding to these snowfall totals portions of around the mid-Atlantic states, heading into upstate New York, as we've got a bona fide low pressure center trying to form off the coast here and really kind of amplifying and slowing down with that negative NAO. But yes, the colder air continues to move southbound. Here's the latest ensemble guidance on the Canadian model. And again, most of these ensembles have that colder air eventually winning out, eating away of that southeast ridge where you've been dominant as of late. You'll finally be locked into the colder temperatures, at least for March standards, for an extended period of time, especially as you get beyond the March 10th timeframe. So yes, by the weekend, we'll be watching this overall track of this low pressure center, because most of the guidance, the European, the Canadian, does have a pretty good strong system off the coast, dumping some heavier snows, of course, portions of New England and portions along the coastal region. So we'll be watching the overall track, but the blend of the models right now are pretty heavy on this particular event, at least even this far out. Here's the overall blend. Over the next 7 days, like I mentioned, it's a compounding effect with the snows happening right now, with that kink in the hose happening on Friday, and then these other systems happening for Saturday and then Sunday. But here's the overall amounts between now and Sunday. So yes, just over that week time frame on the blend, most of these areas in purple could easily pick up 8 to 12 inches of snowfall. That would be a major snowstorm in a lot of these areas, adding to these totals of what you've already seen so far this winter. And even across portions of the mid-Atlantic and even into the Northeast, some pretty decent totals with this particular event. Going forward, and some of these guidances are at least a little bit more bullish than obviously what the blend is. This is more of your conservative model, this far out. But yeah, no question, cold is coming, at least for March standards. It's not going to be warm once you've passed the 10th of the month. From the 10th to the 14th, much of the U.S. will be experiencing locked into those below average temperatures. And I know a lot of these areas will be in spring break or going on spring break for much of the country. So it's not going to be feeling like spring for a good part of the country, as that colder air will continue to move in, and those above average precipitation amounts move in as well. So it continues to remain wet off the West Coast with more systems coming in, and it's just a conveyor belt of systems really kind of all week. So you have more of a zonal flow to begin with, but eventually that cold air will kind of win out. But a good part of the country actually sees above average precipitation. So it's definitely a wet week heading in to next week going forward. And yeah, like I mentioned, beyond that, the cold air finally wins out. So these are your below average temperatures plunging all the way down to the coastal regions, and even a good part of the southeast will finally get into the action for at least an extended period of time from the 11th to the 15th time frame, has a high chance of below average temperatures. So that's kind of rare to see that far south in the middle of March. So definitely it means business for a March strong cold front, as that cold air will continue to win out and eat away that southeast ridge, and you'll be inundated with those below average temperatures for a good part of the southeast, and that will modify and extend in portions of the east as well, as much of the US will be experiencing those below average temperatures. But here's the latest European ensembles. This is pretty bullish over the next 2 weeks. So I broke down the European ensembles, the GFS ensembles, and the Canadian ensembles, all showing pretty good snows. We got more, pretty good snow amounts still on the table through the rest of the next 2 weeks for winter standards, as we still have winter through the, more or less the 21st of the month, hypothetically, with meteorologically winter starts, March 1st, but yeah, actual winter goes all the way through the third week of March here. And yeah, it's going to be feeling like a lot like probably December than it does feel like March, with those below average temperatures locked over a good part of the country. And the GFS is still bullish as well. So we got some more healthy snows continuing on the table, not just for next week, but the week beyond that. And the Canadian ensembles implies the same thing. So we've got some more healthy snows on the way for the next 2 weeks for a good part of the US. So I appreciate you guys watching. Do like this video. Definitely leave your comments below. And don't forget to subscribe to my channel to catch the latest update where I protect you before and after the storm.